Okay. I had it out with somebody on a transformer board on Facebook about the 80s. And I was saying how the politics were simpler. We didn't have helicopter parents, no internet, no cell phones, how so many of us would love to go back. And then I don't know how old the person was, or if it was maybe not even a real person. Could have been a bot. I think it was a real person that does like Transformers. That might be younger. And came back just ugly, saying that and one of the last ones on the bottom was even how public schools still had could use corporal punishment, still taught us love of country, not exactly love of God, but allowed prayer and respect. And the teachers were not trying to be our friends nor teaching us their ideologies. We didn't know we just knew Ms. Reese or Miss Bridges or Mrs. Bridges or whatever. We didn't know who they were married to. We never knew their first name unless we looked in the annual. And that's where education is failing on big time, on everything. They're letting the kids rule the school, and they're letting teachers push ideologies and trying to be their best friends. Oh, you can tell me. We don't have to tell your parent. The teachers are turning into like personal counselors for our students while pushing ideology, bad behavior, narcissistic behavior on top of that. And so I told this person, and I came close to not saying anything at all. But he ended up throwing labels at me, number one, being pretty obvious hatred, and three, I just think jealous. I think he's jealous of the freedoms that we had back then. The work was harder. There was no internet. We needed to do research. We went to the library and looked stuff up. We did the hard work. You don't have to. It's all in your hand on your silly little phone. Yeah. And so I really think these kids or people that are anywhere but say 38 and younger, wherever, or 35 years old and younger, wherever you that may, let me know if I'm wrong. But it seems like, and I do these videos not to enlighten me, but to help show my perspective and maybe help to enlighten my audience. And if I'm preaching to the choir, so be it. That it seems necessary to explain this, because if you didn't live in the 80s, just because you were a certain color didn't mean you were in a certain group. Like Triple K or anything. Not at all. A lot of us were making fun of them. We didn't even know who they were. They don't advertise. They're smaller than ever. But the more our nation and the feds and the president, or this resident and sitting, continues to try to divide the country and continues to not just make fun of MAGA people, but now call them ultra MAGA or whatever crazy, the crazier they can make us sound, then the better it is for their political side. All this is political, unfortunately. They want politics, and I saw the writing on the wall in the 90s, in my 20s, because I was even trying to warn my parents of this mess, and they didn't believe me. What happens in my house stays in my house, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. Because it's here. It's here. Every single day. We can't go a single day without thinking about not either yourself and putting yourself online or on YouTube or on TikTok or whatever crap, in your best outlandish outfit, in your clown makeup and your colored hair. Um, in the anime con ended in September or this past January. It's not every day. When you be who you are doesn't mean you are who you are with green paint in your hair. You're covering a part of yourself up. It might be fun, but it's also unprofessional. And I was at a restaurant today where, yeah, it was Saturday. Yeah, they probably just had a lunch rush, but it was trash was everywhere. At least 3 out of 7 people in the back had their hair dyed and colored and all sorts of craziness. And I'm thinking, when I used to work at a fast food joint, the manager wouldn't have allowed this. In my dad's age, if you wanted to be in sports or run on football or I almost said trampoline, javelin, not javelin. What did he used to do? Pole vault. They couldn't have long hair. They did not allow you to have long hair because it would drag you down. It would add drag. You could run faster with less hair on your head. And there was actually, that's where a lot of our haircuts styles kind of come from, as from the 40s and the 50s era. To look good, to look presentable, to learn to be a part of society and to help give something of yourself, whatever career path you're going to go down. Because once upon a time, managers weren't allowed to just take you as you are, because you're going to put your hands on your hips and go, you have to take me no matter what. I am myself. This is my truth. These my pronouns are. None of that has happened. It wasn't there in the 30s. It wasn't there in the 50s. It wasn't there in the 70s. It wasn't there in the 90s. All this mess started happening after the turn of the century. And when someone on a message board starts trying to tell me that the 80s were bad and that I am a part of something that I'm not, because he grew up in a different way, in a different era that was without the freedoms we had, that was without the public school system we used to have instead of what we have now, where people on TV are saying that if you homeschool your kids, it's destructive. Really? Who are you to tell us who you think we are? That is... And I'm hearing so much crap about how, well, back in the 80s and 90s and 60s and the 70s, when we were just all so insensitive. Insensitive? Bullies were not people that went around saying ugly words at you because they knew it would just hurt you and offend you and make sure you came back with the principal or something. No. That was teasing. Real bullies got physical. They would hurt you. They would put you on the ground. They would give you a shiner and try to get you to fight back. They would take something from you. They wanted something. They wanted your Nikes. They wanted your whatever you had that they wanted, your ball cap, your hats, your knife, whatever. Your money. And sometimes it may not have been done on school grounds. It may have been after school, off of school grounds. Meet me at the Dairy Queen or something, And if you didn't show up, they might do something to you at the school just outside the border of the school property so the school couldn't do anything. That's a real bully. The teasing that went on toughened us up, because in my first and second grade year, sticks and stones can hurt, may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. It may have been a silly limerick for me as a 7-year-old, but it helped teach us something. And you can try to retcon this, or try to undo this for however you want. No. You have to learn words are air. Words do mean things. Rush Limbaugh was right that words do mean things. So pick your words carefully, which means you shouldn't be cursing all the time. True. But at the same bloody time, I got to check on the dogs. But at the same time, you have to learn to let things go. If they're not attacking you and they're just calling you names, turn around. Call them names back, or don't. It's best not to engage. Number one. It's best not to get involved. Most of the time, unfortunately, this is just good advice of daily life. The 80s were fun. The 80s were good. The 80s were a great time to be alive for a teenager. I'm sorry you were born later and didn't get to experience the freedom we had as kids, because we didn't have helicopter parents watching our every move through our cell phones and the 360 app or whatever. We still had phones, but they were attached to a wall or a land phone. And normally there was always one nearby, or a payphone. That's why payphones were all over the place. And there were some neat tricks you could do on phones also. Like my brother knew how to make the house phone ring another house phone. And if you dialed a certain number, you would get the weather report, for the day. There were some neat things that a lot of people just don't know, get, or even understand anymore, because this stuff is lost to the time of technology. And while this is a wonderful convenience to have something in our hands this easily, this available all the time, you need to realize how good it is and not to take it for granted. And that's what a lot of our youth are doing. They have grown up with this for so long and been looking at iPads and tablets and cell phones for so long, eating dinner at together at a table for one, or even together while watching primetime TV, albeit whether it's Wheel of Fortune, sitcoms, or whatever, is almost being lost. And that's why a lot of these programs like Blue Bloods is accidentally conservative. And how some of these actors are finally coming out against the ideology that is quickly being spread like a poison in this country. And they're being canceled. And they are they're paid docked. And they are getting, whatever. Christian cops being told either don't say this mess on Facebook or you're fired. This is a sad state of affairs for our country when everyone in corporate, the feds, our schools, our professions, and big tech have our tongues tied that we can't say anything. Once upon a time, it was up to us. What we said, how we said it, exactly, as well as policing ourselves in polite conversation. While I used to make fun of Miss Manners and Miss Manners rules in the 70s, 80s, and 90s or whatever, I should have paid more attention to Miss Manners. Because even as we've tried to teach our own kids good manners and mannerisms, it's almost all for naught, because all they see is sarcasm, bad behavior, and getting away with anything and everything. And when we have people like the vice president, before she was vice president, paying off and getting bad people out of jail, what can you do? What can you do? We are getting what you voted for. And that's unfortunate. So while I have a backlog of videos that I have got to get uploaded, and unfortunately a lot of this is political or quasi-religious, and I'm trying to decipher, because no one's really looking at me on Rumble. There I'm Nifty 88 or Nifty 88. I've got a few things out there, not a whole lot. And since I'm on TheyTube, I'm having to watch my tongue. We'll see you next time. But that guy on Facebook, I finally made a comment to his comment. First of all, with a GIF, because I was so shocked at what he said. I'm thinking, I'm just going to put a minion on there going, what? Because I was so shocked at his hateful rhetoric, labeling me as something I'm not. And the only thing I can think of is the person, the guy, must be jealous. Must be jealous of my upbringing. Must be jealous that he didn't grow up in the 80s. And let me tell you one thing before I let you go. The 80s was not Stranger Things. The 80s was not. The look is there, but the behavior is a little off the path. The pop culture is kind of there. But the best part of Stranger Things was season 1, and they should have left it at that. They've gotten too money hungry. The kids are too old to be playing teenagers. Things are happening. Be watchful. Listen to everything. From Uganda to Europe to Canada to overseas. The mystery of the blown up pipeline, etc., etc. Dinner is ready. I've got to go. If you didn't live in an era you don't understand fully, then you don't need to be a part of the conversation. Because you weren't there to experience it. You weren't there to enjoy it. If you didn't live it, you don't understand it. That's why I still think today we have a lot of the Civil War wrong. But that's just me. There was a lot written down. A lot of people are not reading this stuff or doing a lot of their true history. And the 80s is just right next door. It was just a second ago. And I'm sorry if you didn't get to live that era, which was very fun, which was very good. Not everybody had a good time during the 80s, but most did. The country was more unified under 8 years of Reagan. He may not have had everything right. He may have been made fun of a good bit. But he was better than anything we've had in a while besides Trump. And so many people liked Trump over Reagan. And I hate to say that to get this political on this channel. But we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. This is my testament of the 80s. We'll see you next time. You are loved. Peace.